Folks, if you don't know who my next guest is, buckle your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy show. Rod Martin is my guest. Rod, the problem with you is I don't even know where to start. Where do we start? I want to talk about everything. There's a lot going on in the news. I'll let you figure out where to start because you write about everything.
Well, we've put out a couple of deep dives in the last few days at rodmartin.org. Rodmartin.org, if your guests don't know it, we've got tens of thousands of subscribers and hundreds of thousands of social media followers for daily geopolitical analysis. Fox Business calls absolutely phenomenal. So what we do is largely, obviously, geopolitical analysis. And we have had a couple things out in the past few days on, first of all, whether Donald Trump is even in a hurry to open the Strait of Hormuz, because there's actually a lot of benefit to it not being open.
Okay.
And second, to Israel's key role as a U.S. ally and how Donald Trump means to take that wide to our whole alliance system.
Well, okay, so I want to talk about the Straits of Hormuz. I never thought I would say that in my lifetime, but I just said it. I want to talk about the Straits of Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz. We all know, if anybody's paying any attention, that this is where all of the oil gets moved out, into the, what is it there? The Indian Ocean by the time you get out of the Straits of Hormuz, and into the rest of the world. So China, all kinds of people dependent on the oil coming through there. Now, the president has, I cannot say how much I love his honesty. He is calling out Keir Starmer, all of the NATO cowards. And let's face it, folks, these people have not been our allies in any true sense. It's really, really pathetic, the bar of when we say, oh, they're our allies, NATO allies. They are, Keir Starmer is for Keir Starmer. I don't even think he's for Great Britain at this point.
Definitely not.
Trump is saying to them, hey, how come America has to be the one dealing with this? What about you guys? And I wonder, and I'm just curious, I want to hear what your take is on this because you're leaning in this direction, but why don't we just say, you know what? We don't want your help. We've got it, and we will get paid for it. We'll take care of this, and we're going to get a gigantic, I don't know if it's a tax or if we're going to own the Iranian oil or what we're going to do, but you wonder, why are we even inviting these other powers? I mean, at some point he was inviting China to say, hey, you want your oil? Why don't you get involved and police this area? What do you make of it?
Well, from a military perspective, he actually has done that. He was very clear. We've got this. We don't need your combat troops. We don't need your fighter jets. We don't need your naval vessels for the most part. However, this is Europe's oil. 20% of the oil that flow, and not just Europe, our East Asian allies too, but it's the European ones who are being a pill. 20% of the world's oil flows out of the Persian Gulf. So how much of that comes to America? Virtually none. And we don't need what does come here except in California. And that's their fault. California has done everything it could to make it impossible to produce oil and refined product on the West Coast. So they still import oil from the Middle East like it's 1973, which is just absurd. But the rest of the country doesn't need it. And we can replace it from Alberta and from Venezuela, especially now that Venezuela is an option. So all these things being the case, the president really set Starmer up, and not just Starmer, Macron, Merz, the rest of them, by saying, look, this is your oil. You're dependent on this. You shouldn't be. You should be buying from the United States, but you are. And you also shouldn't be dependent on Russia, but you are. We told you not to. You went and you became dependent on the Russians. You have actually sent twice as much money to Moscow in energy purchases as you have to Ukraine for aid since the outbreak of the war. You're really kind of cruddy allies, honestly, but here's something you can do, and it won't put you in any meaningful harm's way. Just send some minesweepers Just send a few frigates to escort oil tankers. Nothing big. We'll protect you. We just need a few more boats. Okay, so they all say no. They say no. Okay, Estonia says yes. Tiny Estonia with like 3 people, but their tiny navy is specialized in minesweeping. And they're like, sure, we're happy to help. Germany, France, Spain, Britain, all, oh, no, we can't do
Now,
that.
why?
This isn't
Now,
our
why?
war.
I just have to ask, why? Are they afraid of their own immigrant Muslim populations? What could be behind their malfeasance, their laziness? What is behind this?
I think in England that's true. I think Starmer's government is very much either fearful of or beholden to the Muslim minority. In Germany, it's probably a little bit different. And the German chancellor says this isn't our war. Well, yeah, it's your oil. We're trying to protect your oil supply. It very much is. But never mind that. The German defense minister then comes back and laughs. I mean, just mockingly, and says, what could a handful of European frigates possibly do compared to the mighty U.S. Navy? And, he's just laughing at this. This was Trump's trap. Trump was setting them up. You'll remember a couple months ago, he said, we'll be there for Europe. I'm not sure they'll be there for us. Well, he just proved they won't even be there for Europe. And it's even worse than that. The defense minister told the truth in his sort of humorous statement. The truth is they don't have the ability to meaningfully help. One of the reasons Starmer doesn't want to send frigates and minesweepers, aside from just not really having much of any, is that they can't even operate in warm water. They actually break down if they're in water as warm as the Arabian Sea, which is just amazing. I mean, this used to be the greatest navy in the world. It now has twice as many admirals as it has warships. It's a joke. And this is Trump's point. If Europe won't step up and actually build real militaries, as Israel has, then they're not allies, they're not partners, they're just dependents that we spend money on while they hector us. And it's completely absurd. So they're going to have to get with the program, or we're going to rethink NATO.
Well, listen, I mean, I've been saying this for a long time, little old me. What the heck is NATO? I mean, I cannot for the life of me figure out what this is. It's a relic of the Cold War. It doesn't make any sense. And we have been until Trump, they've been playing us basically, and taking our free effort and free money. So I guess the question is what Trump is doing. He's recalibrating everything. And he's doing a market correction around the whole world and saying, okay, Germany, England, France, what are you willing to pay? Because we're not going to pay for you anymore. We're not going to cover you anymore. So let's do a deal here. So what is the deal? Do we basically take care of the Strait of Hormuz and then say to them, but we're going to charge you since you didn't step up. We're not going to do it for free. If you want oil, you have to come to us.
Well, the most fundamental deal, aspect of the deal is what Trump already achieved last year, because he now has all of them spending 2% of GDP on defense, which is absurdly low, but it's infinitely better than they were. Germany at one point was spending 1.4. They're the heart of Europe. They're the richest country on the continent. These are countries that collectively have an economy bigger than the United States, but they're paying less than 30% of the bill to defend, wait for it, them.
Right.
Their oil in the Persian Gulf, their borders in the east with Russia. And we also have to be realistic about the Russian threat, such as it is. Do we trust Putin? No. Is he hostile? Yes. But he also has spent 4 years not getting to Kiev, not meeting his war aims in a war he picked with a relatively small country. Forget the entire NATO alliance. There's no chance Vladimir Putin has any possibility of marching on Berlin. That's just not going to happen. So there are threats in the world. We just saw that with the Iranians firing missiles they claimed they didn't have. at Diego Garcia, which means that London is in range of Iranian missiles if they decide to hit the city or hit Westminster. That is a real thing. And I'm sure that sent shockwaves through Europe. But it also means they're about one step away from an ICBM that can hit New York or Washington or Dallas. So Iran is a real threat. They won't do anything about it. They haven't deployed any missile defenses to deal with that sort of thing, as the Israelis have. They won't help us secure the oil. They are sending more money to Russia than they are to Ukraine. What are they for? And this is Trump's point. And this is actually the point of the deep dive this morning on Israel. Israel is a real partner. They've got a real military. They actually fight a bunch of fights that we don't have to. And what Trump wants is for all our allies to be like that. So Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Australia, NATO, all these guys would be in a position to police their own backyards so we don't have to be the policeman of the world. And when there's a crisis, that allows America to deliver sharp, decisive force at the point of crisis instead of having troops spread out all over the planet as we did in the Bush and Obama years. This is a huge model shift, and we're pioneering it before your eyes in the Middle East.
Well, I have a few questions. First of all, I guess I keep getting surprised that Iran is still alive and kicking. You know, it's like the knight in, Monty Python's and the Holy Grail. You know, I figure it's over, but they keep saying, no, it's just a scratch. It's just a scratch. And they keep going. I mean, the fact that they were able to fire these missiles, I guess I would have thought that they weren't able to do that. What do you suppose is actually going on? I mean, every day I'm expecting that the people are going to rise up and the mullahs are going to be thrown out. And every day I get news in the opposite direction. So I find it a little bit confusing.
No, this is going to take a minute because they're not going to give up until they have to give up for the very good reason that they have nowhere to go. I mean, these are people who are clinging to life. And if the people in the streets were to take over the country, their life expectancy would be about 3 minutes. It would be like Ceausescu. And there's not a really good way to just evacuate to Russia. They don't want to go to China. They don't want to live in exile. They want to wait out the United States. And their entire assessment of U.S. policy historically is if you can just take the blows long enough, America will get tired of it and go away. And they believe that because that's what Bush, Obama, and Biden taught them. They're not crazy to think it. It's just they're not dealing with Bush, Obama, or Biden. This is just a completely different thing, and Trump isn't going to let up. So the most important thing that happened in the last week, and it's been going on for just over a week now, is the Israelis and the Americans have been hitting individual Revolutionary Guard members like at traffic stops, various places in the middle of major cities like Tehran, taking out individual guys. We are decimating the IRGC in detail. And the old canard about how, you can't possibly win a war from the air. Well, that's true in 1940 technology. That's absolutely true. But when I can effectively send a bunch of unmanned snipers to every part of a country and take out only the guys I want to take out and leave all of the good people, that's a revolution in warfare. So I think this will take a minute, but we're going to get to a point where there's a critical mass of depressed Iranian power that allows the suppressed Iranian people to rise and take back their country.
Here's another question that I've been dying to ask anybody, but you especially. I thought when we hit, however many months ago, those three major nuclear sites, that we had wiped out their ability, into the future. And then suddenly I hear, a few weeks ago, well, no, they're an imminent threat. They have the ability to do this and this and this. What am I missing? Nobody really has explained that to me. How can we have wiped them out and then suddenly they reconstitute in 5 minutes and they're an imminent threat. What is that?
Well, I wish the president had explained this a little better, but it's actually not that complicated. They were able to salvage a bunch of enriched uranium in the process of all that happening. So they were able to exfiltrate all this enriched uranium, and they come into the talks with Trump's people, Witkoff and Kushner and the rest, and say, look, we've got enough here to make 11 bombs in a matter of weeks. And they're bragging, like this is going to help them. Because their whole model is, first, the U.S. will back down. If it doesn't back down, we can wait them out. And above all, if we invade with a big army like we did in Iraq twice, Iran will chew it up. The geography is just completely different. It's a much larger country. It's got a lot more people. And that would make Vietnam look like a child's tea party. So they're like, hey, we can win this. We can hold it out and we can mine the strait and everything will be fine. Okay, so they're bragging. You didn't get it all. And of course, to Trump, that's a red flag in front of a bull. So there's that piece of it. But the other piece is the missile information we all got this weekend that the Trump administration knew. They had good intelligence on this. The public didn't know, and Iran has lied about it consistently. So when they say, oh, we promulgated a fatwa against ever having nuclear weapons, yeah, you said you didn't have ICBMs too. So you're just lying.
Well, first of all they do is lie. And again, this gets to this is the liberal problem. And this goes way back, to the 1930s and before that, an inability to deal with evil, constantly believing the lies, not understanding that there are people who don't believe in telling the truth. They believe in lying. So whether you're dealing with the former Soviet Union, whether you're dealing with the people heading up Iraq during the Iraq wars, whether you're dealing with it, whenever you're dealing with these folks, they'll say anything. But I'm fascinated that there are people who believe them. I mean, it's just amazing to me that people who would, okay, Iran said this, so I guess that means it's true. We know that that's not true.
They want to believe because it contradicts Donald Trump. I mean, there is a very real TDS aspect to it. But the truth is, if it were Bush or it were Reagan or it were George Washington, for that matter, they would still believe the Iranians because they're fundamentally anti-American. At their core. I mean, they might choose to live here. They might pledge allegiance if they have to. But these are people who just fundamentally think that America is bad. And if you don't believe it, just go to a gender studies class. Just go to a political science seminar. They teach that America is the focus of evil in the world. And then we're supposed to believe they're patriotic? No. So they want to believe anything the American government says is a lie. And to be fair, a lot of things the American government has said in the last several years have been lies. So they're not entirely wrong. They seem to have missed the part where we had a little change of management here, on the conservative side at least. They should know better. If Kash Patel tells you something, that's meaningfully different than if Merrick Garland tells you something or Bob Mueller tells you something. But some on the right have lost track of that. And the left is completely all in on China as an unstoppable, superpowered, world dominant force, and Iran as having infinitely more power than it ever had. And at the same time, not taking their very serious threats seriously. The biggest one is the missile capability. I guarantee you that is the thing more than any other from the threat perspective that pushed the administration's buttons. They realized that they actually had intermediate range ballistic missiles that could go 4,000 kilometers. That puts London in range, Paris in range, Berlin in range, Diego Garcia.
Why would they not have hit those sites first?
Because they only have a few. But they had a huge production capacity. They were ramping up to build thousands and thousands of these. And again, you're just one half step from having an ICBM that hits New York or Dallas when you're at that point. They have orbited a satellite. They are capable of Earth orbit. If you're capable of Earth orbit, you're capable of an ICBM. They just haven't quite gotten there yet. And in fact, the very first satellite ever orbited around the Earth, Sputnik 1, was launched on the first ever Soviet ICBM, which had just actually come into production in August of 57, and then they launched Sputnik in October. This is what they're doing. They have tested all the parts. They're ready to ramp this up. And the question is, are you going to wait until they invade Poland? Are you going to deal with this when they enter the Rhineland? Pick one.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was a World War II reference in case you're scoring at home. Okay, so where are we now? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think Europe's response is? I mean, it sounds to me like you think Europe will step up now that even Keir Starmer realizes, oh, maybe we need to do something since they have missiles that could hit us in London. Or, I mean, I want to say that if you're trying to, psychoanalyze the liberals, and by the liberals, I mean Europe, or the Democrats, they are basically cowards. They don't believe in fighting. So anytime they can take a deal, even if that deal means we'll be your slaves one way or the other, they're happy to take that deal. Whether it's the loyalists in the American Revolution, which I've been writing about in my book, or that there are people that are just like, well, we'll just take the deal. We don't want to fight. We don't have enough courage. We don't even know what we believe in, really. So why are we going to risk our lives when we're not sure what we believe in? That's, to me, where Western Europe is today. They don't really have any robust sense of who they are, of any Christian civilization, which they used to. So they kind of think, well, we just want to make peace with whoever the invaders are, whether it's Muslim immigrants into our countries here, or whether it's, playing patty cake with Iran or whomever. They just don't have a sense of what is right and wrong, and are therefore not willing to fight and die for what is right and good and true. And if you're dealing with folks like that, I don't understand why President Trump thinks he can get them to change. That's what I don't really understand.
Well, I think he can, and I think he already has to a degree. And by the way, it's worth noting, the Europeans did a huge about face on Friday. And all of a sudden, the same governments I was just lambasting put out a joint statement, interestingly including Japan, saying, oh yeah, we're absolutely going to help. Frigates and minesweepers, you betcha, all you want. And so they got the message, but the message is twofold. First, if NATO isn't an alliance, if it's just a social club where you pick on America and they pay all your bills, then we're going to rethink that. There's no overwhelming reason we couldn't piece together a much more potent alliance consisting of friends like Poland and the Baltic states. And I know this will sound crazy to some of this audience, but Ukraine, they've actually proven to be pretty amazing going toe-to-toe with the Russians, and Israel and Saudi Arabia and the UAE and Japan and Korea. There's no need to put up with this trash out of Macron. You just don't.
Now, how come?
So that's part of it. But the other piece, and I can't stress this enough, Eric, the other piece is financial. We have allowed the British to continue being the center of maritime insurance, without which global trade is impossible, for decades, actually nearly a century after the U.S. Navy took over from the Royal Navy policing the seas. And that's absurd. We've got the expense. They've got the profit. I'm sorry. The insurance policy underlying every ship that sails is the United States Navy. So why shouldn't we get the profit from the insurance policy?
Okay, so is that happening? Have we bumped Lloyd's of London out and we're in? Are we doing this?
Yeah, to a degree. Now, it's not so done that it can't be undone, but Trump's got a loaded gun to Starmer's head on this because what he did, and it's been 2 weeks ago now, he announced And it was clear Scott Bessent had this teed up for a year before he did it. He announced that the United States Development Finance Corporation will henceforth guarantee policies at a substantial discount to make sure that you can get insurance to get through the Strait of Hormuz. Well, they have to roll out the facility. We have to do the mine sweeping. All those things have to happen. So there's a little bit of delay in it. What does that do? Well, it immediately forced Lloyd's to rethink canceling coverage, which was a huge problem for what we're trying to do over there. If anything, it was kind of pro-Iran. And second, it's a message, a gun to the head of the British government. The last big profitable thing that you still have from the British Empire, we can take it to Washington and New York, and you can do without if you don't start playing ball. And, nobody's been willing to do that before. But Trump is like, look, we don't want to coerce you. We want you to step up and be a partner. We're in this together or we're not.
I guess I just wonder if Trump can use these tactics on Mayor Mamdani here in New York. It's just fascinating what he is doing everywhere and what we're facing, what we're dealing with. What about Cuba right now? What do you think's going on? There's so much happening at once. What do you suppose it could happen with Cuba, and what's the timeline?
Timeline's a little hard to say, but I wouldn't give them long. These are, we're talking a matter of months. They don't have fuel. They don't have money.
But is there anybody to run that country? I mean, if the communist regime goes down, who runs it? What happens?
Well, that's the big question, of course. But Trump has been very clear. He intends to pick the next leader. And that doesn't mean he's going to install Marco Rubio as governor general, although he might, you never know.
Yeah.
But it does mean there's going to be a transition, because there always has to be a transition, and we're going to have a say. And I'm sure the current Cuban regime is horrified by that, but they also have nowhere to go. We're starting to see unrest in the country. They simply can't keep the lights on. Literally can't keep the lights on.
Well,
and the piece
I was going to say
misses about the Venezuelan oil is that some of that was going to fuel Cuba.
Yeah.
A lot of that was getting resold by the Cubans for the hard currency to run their country.
No. This is, I'm so sorry we're out of time. I just love talking to you. Rod Martin, God bless you. We'll talk to you next week.
Outstanding.